The most dominant player in the WNBA just got the most humiliating reality check of her career. A'ja Wilson, a two-time MVP, multiple-time champion, and the face of the Las Vegas Aces dynasty, was not invited to Team USA's elite training camp at Duke. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, the rookie whom Wilson spent an entire season subtweeting and undermining, received a gold-embossed invitation to help design the next decade of American basketball. This isn't speculation. This isn't social media drama. This is USA Basketball making a decision that's sending shockwaves through women's basketball. And what it reveals about power, jealousy, and consequences might change everything you thought you knew about this league. Because here's what makes this story so explosive. USA Basketball didn't just skip over Wilson by accident. They invited Paige Bueckers. They invited Angel Reese. They even invited college star Juju Watkins, who hasn't played a single WNBA game yet. But the reigning MVP, the player whose resume should guarantee her a lifetime spot on any Team USA roster, was left at home. And if you've been paying attention to the pattern of behavior Wilson has displayed over the past year, you might understand exactly why. If you believe actions should have consequences in professional sports, hit that like button right now. It shows you're here for the real story, not just the headlines. That let's establish the facts first, because this situation is far more calculated than it appears. USA Basketball announced invitations to an elite training camp at Duke University, designed specifically to build chemistry and evaluate talent for the 2026 World Cup and the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. This isn't a casual summer exhibition. This is where the next generation of Team USA is forged. The coaching staff includes Sue Bird, who came out of retirement specifically to help mentor these players. The offensive system is being redesigned from the ground up. Everything about this camp screams, we're building something new. So who received invitations? Caitlin Clark, obviously. Her impact on women's basketball is undeniable at this point. Paige Bueckers, the UConn star projected to be the next face of the sport. Aaliyah Boston, Clark's teammate on the Indiana Fever, who has developed into one of the league's best young centers. Angel Reese, despite her complicated relationship with Clark, got the call because USA Basketball recognizes her talent. Juju Watkins, the USC phenom already drawing comparisons to both Clark and Wilson, secured her spot before even entering the WNBA. Notice anyone missing? The player who should have been first on that list. The player whose championship pedigree and MVP hardware should make her automatic. A'ja Wilson received no invitation, no call, no explanation, just silence. And that silence is deafening. Many of you have been connecting these dots for months. You've watched Wilson's social media behavior. You've seen the pattern. Every time Caitlin Clark accomplished something historic, Wilson had something to say. But not congratulations, not a celebration of women's basketball's growth. Something else entirely. When Clark broke attendance records and generated unprecedented revenue for the league, Wilson posted about her own Nike deal, desperately trying to remind people that she also had endorsements. The timing wasn't coincidental, it was transparent. When Clark won Rookie of the Year in what most analysts called the most impressive rookie season in WNBA history, Wilson questioned the voting criteria on social media. When Clark's jersey became the best-selling WNBA merchandise ever recorded, Wilson complained about marketing inequality, as if Clark's appeal were somehow unfair rather than earned. The pattern was exhausting, and more importantly, it was noticed. Then came the speaking fee claims. Wilson even suggested that she commanded the same rates as Caitlin Clark for corporate appearances. Let's filter out the noise for a moment and look at reality. Fortune 500 companies were announcing partnerships with Clark like they had just signed Michael Jordan. Major corporations were restructuring their entire women's sports marketing strategies around Clark's appeal. Show me a single press release where a blue-chip company celebrated securing A'ja Wilson, the way they celebrated booking Caitlin Clark. The market doesn't lie, and neither do booking agents. But the lowest moment, the incident many insiders believe crossed a professional line, came when Wilson suggested that Clark's Time Magazine Athlete of the Year recognition was influenced by factors beyond merit. She injected identity politics into what should have been a pure basketball achievement. She couldn't allow Clark to have one untainted moment of recognition. And here's what Wilson didn't understand at the time. People in positions of power were watching. USA basketball officials, coaching staff, Olympic committee members. They were all taking notes. Because building a Team USA roster isn't just about talent. It's about chemistry, leadership, professionalism, and the ability to put team success above personal ego. When you spend months publicly undermining the sport's biggest star, the person generating unprecedented attention and revenue for women's basketball, you're showing exactly the kind of toxic behavior that destroys team environments. Reading between the lines of USA Basketball's decisions reveals something fascinating. They aren't just selecting players, they're making a statement about values. Sue Bird didn't come out of retirement to maintain old hierarchies. She returned to bridge the gap between what Team USA was and what it needs to become. And what it needs are players who celebrate the sport's growth, not undermine it, players who elevate their teammates, not tear them down on social media. The camp at Duke emphasizes transition basketball, ball movement, and creating advantages through pace. Know who spent the last 2 years mastering exactly those skills? Caitlin Clark. Know who spent the last 2 years posting cryptic messages about patience and delayed blessings instead of focusing on evolution? You can probably guess. Here's where it gets truly interesting. Let's talk about what USA Basketball is actually building. Because understanding their strategy explains exactly why Wilson was left behind. The new Team USA philosophy centers on pace, spacing, and positionless basketball. They're designing an offensive system that mirrors what's succeeding in international competition and dominating the modern game. At the center of that system, they need a floor general who can push tempo, create for others, and make split-second decisions at full speed. Drop a comment right now. Do you think Wilson's social media behavior influenced USA Basketball's decision, or is this purely about basketball fit? Because this debate is dividing the entire WNBA community. Caitlin Clark isn't attending this camp as just another participant. Behind closed doors, coaches are already designing rotations with her as the primary decision-maker. They're not asking whether she can handle international basketball. They're asking which all-stars best complement her style. This isn't an evaluation. It's a coronation. When USA Basketball commits to building around a specific player, they're making a decade-long investment. They did it with Diana Taurasi. They did it with Sue Bird. Now they're doing it with Clark, and that commitment is absolute. Meanwhile, Wilson's exclusion speaks volumes about how USA Basketball views her role in the sport's future. And now we're entering territory where sources are whispering. Take this with appropriate skepticism. But multiple people close to the program say Wilson's name came up during selection meetings not as a lock, not as a priority, but as a question mark. The discussion reportedly focused on whether her recent behavior reflected the kind of leadership Team USA requires. According to these accounts, the decision wasn't unanimous, but the majority believed her pattern of public criticism toward Clark raised serious concerns about judgment. Think about what that means. USA Basketball had to debate whether the reigning MVP possessed the maturity and professionalism to represent the country. That isn't a talent question, that's a character question. And when you force decision-makers to question your character because of your social media behavior, you've already lost. The Nike deal comparison illustrates the gap between these two players better than anything else. When Nike offered Clark 8 years and $28 million, they weren't just buying a spokesperson. They were investing in a cultural phenomenon. The deal included signature shoe development, something Nike only offers to athletes they believe can move massive amounts of product. Wilson has a Nike deal too, but it's structured very differently. A standard athlete endorsement. Good money, certainly, but not transformational. No signature shoe. No cultural partnership. Just proof that the market clearly distinguishes between star power and superstar power. And here's what makes Wilson's jealousy so counterproductive. Clark's success was lifting everyone. Television ratings were exploding, which meant better broadcast deals for all WNBA players. Merchandise sales were soaring, which meant increased revenue sharing. Corporate sponsors were flooding into women's basketball, which meant more endorsement opportunities across the board. Clark wasn't taking anything from Wilson. She was creating new value for the entire ecosystem. But Wilson couldn't see past her own insecurity to recognize that reality. You were right to notice that Wilson's cryptic social media posts always seemed to coincide with Clark's major announcements. The pattern was so obvious it became a running joke in WNBA circles. Clark signs a major deal. Wilson posts about delayed blessings within hours. Clark breaks a record. Wilson tweets about patience and timing. It was transparent, predictable, and ultimately self-destructive. Because while Wilson was crafting social media responses, Clark was working on her game, building relationships with teammates, and conducting herself with the kind of professionalism that makes organizations want to invest in you. The 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles represent everything Wilson has now lost: home soil, a massive global audience, and a legacy-defining opportunity. By the time those games arrive, Clark will have 2 full years of international experience. She'll have hundreds of practices with her core teammates. She'll have complete command of the USA basketball system. She won't be learning, she'll be leading, and Wilson will be watching from home, probably posting about how her exclusion proves some larger point about fairness or recognition, or whatever narrative helps her sleep at night. But the most damning evidence of Wilson's declining relevance comes from where the conversation has shifted. 2 years ago, when you mentioned Team USA women's basketball, Wilson was automatically part of that discussion. Today, fans are debating whether Angel Reese or Aaliyah Boston fits better alongside Clark in the frontcourt. They're discussing how Paige Buecher's playmaking complements Clark's shooting. They're analyzing Juju Watkins' potential impact. Wilson's name barely comes up anymore. And when it does, it's usually about what went wrong, not what could be. To USA basketball follows the money because it has to. They're building a program that generates revenue, attracts sponsors, and grows the sport globally. When they evaluated their options, the calculation was straightforward. Clark brings unprecedented attention, record television ratings, sold-out arenas, corporate partnerships, and global appeal. She does it while making teammates better and maintaining professional composure. Wilson brings championships and MVP hardware, but also baggage, controversy, a documented pattern of attacking the league's biggest star, and declining marketability with each passing month. Which player builds your program for the next decade? USA Basketball answered that question decisively. The 2026 World Cup roster will be announced eventually, and everyone already knows the core. Clark, Buecher's, Boston, probably Reese despite her issues, and a supporting cast of players who understand the assignment, players who celebrate growth, embrace change, and put team success above personal ego. Wilson won't be on that roster. Not because she can't play, but because she demonstrated she can't lead. And here's the truly poetic justice in all of this. Clark probably doesn't think about Aya Wilson anymore. She's too focused on preparing for the Duke camp, developing her international game, and building the next chapter of her career. Wilson's jealousy lives rent-free in Wilson's head. Not Clark's. That's the fundamental difference between winners and people who sabotage themselves. Winners focus on improvement. Everyone else focuses on tearing others down. So where does Wilson go from here? Does she learn from this humiliation? Does she reflect on how her behavior cost her the opportunity of a lifetime? Does she approach next season with humility and professionalism? Or does she double down, posting more cryptic messages, continuing the victim narrative, and blaming everyone except herself? Based on her track record, you can probably guess which path she'll choose. But maybe, just maybe, watching Caitlin Clark represent Team USA without her will teach Wilson what nobody else could. You can't hate your way to success. You can't undermine the sport's growth and expect to benefit from it. You can't spend months attacking the person carrying women's basketball on her back and expect decision-makers to ignore it. Actions have consequences in the real world, and Wilson just learned that lesson the hardest way possible. If this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening in women's basketball, hit that subscribe button and smash the notification bell, because this is the only channel giving you the unfiltered truth about WNBA power dynamics. And trust me, the next chapter of this story is going to be even more explosive. That we're tracking Wilson's response, Clark's camp performance, and the fallout heading into next season. The future of women's basketball is being decided right now at Duke, and Aya Wilson isn't part of that conversation anymore. Sometimes karma doesn't just catch up, it runs you over. That we'll see you in the next one.